Today's episode is being brought to you by Untarnished, Reclaiming My Self-Worth Through God's Untainted Love. Untarnished is a compelling memoir and simple self-help guide where I give you the inside scoop on my personal journey and provide coping strategies to help others heal from their past. You can download a free copy of the first chapter by heading over to donnacherie.com/untarnished. You're listening to Untarnished Moments, the podcast that helps you shine through life challenges and move past self-defeat into victory. I'm your host, Donna Cherie. Let's get into today's show. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Untarnished Moments. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And if you're just joining the show for the first time, welcome. And be sure to share this episode with someone you know, someone you love, or someone that you know this episode might be beneficial to. So today I have a special guest. Her name is Jenna Hodge, and she is the owner of Purpose Intended website, where she coaches moms into motherhood. So welcome to the show, Jenna.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So share with us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I am a mom, obviously 3 little boys, and I help challenges in motherhood. So whether it be with their babies and toddlers and how to care for them and their sleep, their feeding, their development, all that. And then also for the mom and all the struggles she faces and taking care of herself, balancing all the things, being productive, doing things that she loves and wants to be outside of a mom, and just find that balance with both so that you can feel like you are confident in your motherhood and you're enjoying it.
Okay. And then what has your journey, kind of like in a summary, been like since you have 3 boys and just learning about being a mom? What has that journey looked like for you?
Well, all of mine were wonderful surprises and they happened in 4 years. So it was back to back to back. And at a younger age, I got started earlier than like my peers did. So whereas most of my peers are just not having their first, maybe their second. So it was different for me because I didn't have like that mom community going into it. When I was a first time mom, I only really had like much older people talking to me or giving me advice, and it was nice, but it wasn't super helpful because it was kind of, outdated, or it wasn't very practical stuff. I didn't have like a community, an army, like a support system around me other than my husband as a first time mom. So I kind of had to learn a lot on my own and took matters into my own hands. And through my rough transition into becoming a mom, my postpartum season was rough. Healing from my birth was rough. And I got to a low point where I just decided something has to change. I can't live like this anymore. And thankfully, I changed and improved things drastically in a positive direction than in a negative one. Whereas I know a lot of moms sadly do turn that way. And that's why I help moms, because I don't want to see that happen anymore. I want to tell them, like, it is common for you to feel this way, but it doesn't have to be normal and it doesn't have to stay this way. Like, there is a way to get out of it. There is a way to improve things. There is a way to feel better, to have more energy, to enjoy your kids, to not be depressed, like all of that. So I did some research, really dove into my baby and what he needed and his health. And in turn, when he got better, I therefore was able to sleep more and heal faster. And then that's when I got pregnant shortly again, right after that. So that turnaround, my second pregnancy and birth and postpartum, was so much better. I felt better. I was healthier. I did an unmedicated birth that time, and it was very empowering. And I was like, I got this. Now I had 2 under 2, and I just felt very much more confident this time. I knew what I was doing with the baby because I'd done all that research already, and my kids were so close. Like, I felt like I had a lot of knowledge in that sense, a lot of experience already. So that's kind of what led me into starting all this. That's why I started with blogging, actually, just to help moms, like, hey, I've been there. This is what I went through. 1, you're not alone. Here's how you can get out of it. Or 2, here's how you can even avoid this, because it is possible to go from here to here, or it is possible to just go straight to here and skip that awful part. And then when I had my third son, I experienced some of the similar stuff I had the first time again, but a little bit different this time. And with me personally, not with him, because at this point, obviously, I knew how to care for a baby. That part wasn't foreign to me anymore, and I knew what he needed, but I was not okay mentally and physically. And so I've also learned since he's been born, how to advocate for myself, how to take care of myself even better, even though I was already, always have been passionate about that. But I've just increased that even more, learned a lot more about women's health and our hormones and just our nutrition and just everything that it takes to like taking care of us because our bodies are so sensitive to stuff and how obviously that impacts our kids and how we parent and how we show up for our families. So no one's okay if mom's not okay. So that's why I started in coaching because I wanted to help moms one-on-one and improve where they're at so that everybody in their family can thrive. So
Excellent. That sounds like a lot of work.
yeah.
But I mean, it's good work and good that you finally came to a point where you understood like what your children needed as well as for yourself. So that's definitely a must. And I just want to go back to something you said real quick about like an unmedicated pregnant birth. Is that
Mm-hmm.
yeah, does that
Mm-hmm.
mean that you didn't receive an epidural or
Yes. Yes.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so the times that you were going through like postpartum depression, you mentioned that you went through that multiple times. What were some of the symptoms that showed up where you recognized that's what you were experiencing?
Well, it wasn't completely foreign to me, obviously, going into my first pregnancy. Like, everyone knows what that is, but I didn't really like connect the dots until like a lot of time had passed where I wasn't, I was resenting him for not sleeping, for crying. Later found out he had really bad reflux, so that's why he would cry every time we would lay him down. So therefore I wasn't sleeping. I was severely sleep deprived, and that can make you go crazy. That can mess up your hormones that are already out of whack from giving birth because you're not able to rest and restore them and rejuvenate them every day. And so you're just constantly depleted. So yeah, I was resenting my own baby, angry, like the rage, whole nother level, hormonal rages. I was very, I had a lot of headaches and because I wasn't sleeping. So that was physically uncomfortable. I also couldn't concentrate or focus. Like I would be present but not present, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, I'm physically here, but I'm not here. Like I'm spaced out. Like you could, and this was more so with my third, you could talk to me and it would just go right over my head. I could not follow conversation. I couldn't remember things. I was forgetful. I was in a fog. And basically, especially my third, the only opposite of with my first, with my third, the only thing that made me happy was my baby. And that like literally kept me going was him. Whereas with my first, I think I wasn't sleep deprived with my third. So maybe that had a lot to do with it. But with my first, I was so sleep deprived and he was my only one and I didn't know what I know now. So I was very frustrated, like, why aren't you sleeping? Why are you crying so much? I had healed from a rough birth too, so I physically wasn't doing okay and wasn't able to take care of myself because I was pouring into him but didn't know what I was doing. So all my frustration was kind of poured out on him and blaming on him when I didn't really get to have that first amazing motherhood experience with him in his first few months because he had that reflux that was undiagnosed that I didn't know about. He was sleep deprived. He was actually not gaining weight because breastfeeding, we had a whole issue there. So like it was a lot of things. Whereas with my third, I had a lot of those figured out, but it was purely just me. It was just the hormone imbalance, the depletion, not being able to have all that regulated. And if it goes past like within the first month, I would call that postpartum depression. If it's just the first month, then yes, that's typical baby blues because your hormones, I mean, whew, like you were pregnant and you give birth and now you're possibly breastfeeding. It's like your hormones are up and down. That's crazy. It can really impact a woman. But if it doesn't regulate past like a month or so, then I would definitely say that's probably postpartum depression.
Okay. And then I know that you started doing research and reaching out to a community, but what other steps did you take to kind of combat those things that you were experiencing?
Okay, it was kind of different for my first and my third. So with my first, I did the like I said, I did the research for his sleep, for what baby sleep needed. I sleep trained him, got him on a consistent routine, so he was sleeping better and longer, and his quality was better. But that was also in conjunction with the acid reflux, because like I said, when you have acid reflux, when they lay down and it comes back up in their esophagus, it burns. So that's why they cry when you lay them down after you feed them. And I tried the pediatrician first and found out they pretty much would give Zantac, and that's something you have to up the dosage constantly because babies are constantly growing, and it didn't really do anything for him. So we wound up seeing a pediatric gastroenterologist because that's their specialty. They can really dive into it. And so it wasn't until we saw him that we actually got some answers, got him on the right medication to where he wasn't, yeah, he spit up, but it wasn't painful for him and it wasn't affecting his sleep anymore. And then therefore I actually wound up just stop breastfeeding at 5 months because it was so painful for me. And the pediatrician told me that he wasn't gaining the weight because of my fore milk hind milk imbalance. So my milk wasn't very fatty, even though I was like overproducing. It wasn't very fatty. So she almost kind of like shamed me into thinking like I'm trying to diet and lose the weight fast. That's why my milk wasn't fatty. So she tried to fatten me up essentially. Through trying a bunch of things, I just said, I'm done. Like, I was in pain every time I was breastfeeding, like bleeding, bruising, And yes, I knew my milk was more of like a lean milk, but I was producing plenty. And he was just a lean baby. He wasn't like not thriving. Like, he wasn't not okay. But I just decided for my mental and physical health, I'm done. So once I started him formula, yeah, he thickened up a little bit. But he's still eating the same amount. And he's well above average right now in his size. And he's 5. So he's totally fine. But that's what I learned with his first experience. And then with my third, like I said, it was more just me. I knew how to care for a baby. So like I wasn't struggling in that sense. Like I wasn't struggling with, oh, he's not asleep. Like I understood baby sleep. I understood what cries sounded like, how to get him on a consistent eating schedule. Breastfeeding was fine. But for me, like I said, it was the fog. It was the not being present, forgetting things left and right. I mean, like I felt mentally crazy. And I knew because I'd already kind of gone through this, like the depression side of it, not wanting to be here. Basically, I could admit it. I was open about it. I talked to my husband about it, said, hey, I'm not okay. Like I'm telling you, this is what I got going on. I'm trying and basically did some research because I physically wasn't healing from birth the way I thought I should at that point. That I thought, okay, I think I have postpartum hypothyroidism, which can cause a lot of things. So I went and saw a doctor about it and had to go to my OB for that. And I asked her to test my thyroid. And she looked at me and was like, well, you're not in menopause, so it can't be your thyroid. I don't believe that to be true, but whatever. Anyways, can you just test it?
Right. Yes.
I very much felt like she looked at me like, you're young and you just want to be skinny. Again, shamed for, someone else's insecurities, judging where I'm at. And I'm like, first of all, it's my third child. I know I've been here many times before. I am super in tune with my body. I know how my body responds to things. I take care of myself. I'm active. I eat well. I'm sleeping okay because I know how to take care of my children. They're sleeping good, so therefore so am I. And I know something's not right. I mean, at this point, I was 10 months postpartum. I still feel like I had just given birth a few weeks ago, both mentally and physically. You know how if you've had a kid, you know what I'm talking about. Despite me doing all those things. And I'm like, at this point, things should be different. So she tested my TSH, which is not even really your thyroid. Your thyroid's made up of a bunch of things. So really didn't even scratch the surface on that. And like 3 other things I didn't flag off. So she said I was fine. I'm like, all right, well, that didn't work. I know I'm not fine. So next step, I decided to go the functional medicine route because I knew, and I wanted to do that for a while, but insurance doesn't usually cover them, so they're expensive. So I was like, well, I tried all the other things. I was patient. I waited it out. Third kid was told third kid takes longer. Okay, waited it out. I stopped breastfeeding, waited it out for things to level out. It still didn't. Okay. I went to my doctor. She tested stuff. That didn't work. All right. Now I'm almost a year postpartum, so I'm going to try the functional medicine route and got a thorough hormone and blood panel done. I'm still working with her right now, and he's about to be 2 in a few months. So gotten so much better, 100% mentally, like within the first month or 2 with working with her. Physically, we're still figuring some things out, but I'm learning more that I didn't even consider or think about as I'm working with her. So it was the first time I felt heard and listened to and taken seriously. And the first appointment was like 2 hours of just me talking, which was so nice. So, and I have access to her in between appointments to just, if I have any questions, like she messages me back and stuff and is willing to work with me and never makes me feel stupid or vain or because I'm, like on the younger end of things, I'm not treated as such. I'm like, I know my body. I know you know the science and the medicine, but I know me more than anybody else does. So she believes me. So yeah, that's where I'm at, and that's how my 2 scenarios differed. But
Okay, yeah, and good for you as well for just continuing to advocate for yourself and look for answers. Because I think sometimes people just give up. Like if one doctor says no, this is not it, then they might stop, but we
Mhm.
do need to be our best advocates for ourselves when it comes to something similar to this, as well as just other physical things that we might notice in our body, or even just mentally, to find the proper
Mhm.
support in the correct person, because they are out there, but we can't give up. So that's good. Now, as far as like with your spouse, what are some ways, like if there is a mother who might be may have had similar experiences to yours and they have a spouse, like how can they communicate to their spouse what they are going through, and how can their spouse be supportive?
Hmm. Well, I mean, obviously you have to, I believe, like open communication in a marriage is so important with anything. Like you cannot keep things inside of you. You can't expect people to help you if you don't tell them what you need help with. If you don't open up, if you don't accept help when people offer help, for sure, definitely take advantage of that. But a lot of times, some people may not know you need help if you don't voice that you do. They may think everything is fine, especially if you have that facade put up, or you're trying to be superwoman, whether you feel like you need to or you want to, and you're pushing yourself too far. Like that, there's a reason why they say it takes a village. Like nobody can do all this 100% on their own without physically or mentally and emotionally breaking in some way, or depleting themselves, or sacrificing something that they need for their own self-care. Unfortunately, as adults, whose job is it to take care of so it isn't anyone's job to fix you, to give you what you need. Even your spouse, it's not their job to take care of you, but it is their job to be there for you, to love you, to support you, to care for you, obviously. But it is your job to take steps that need to be taken. Like they can't work out for you, they can't sleep better for you, they can't set up boundaries for you. Like whatever it is you need to do, you need to do that for yourself. And only you know truly 100% how you feel physically and mentally and all of that. Like I said with my doctor, like I know my body better than anybody else does because I live in it and I've lived in it this whole time. It's the same for you. Like you know what's going on, and everybody else only knows what they see or what you tell them. So if what they see is you're fine, or what they see is you're not fine, or is that true? Like make sure what you're saying and what you're doing is true so that they know how to help you. And also explain it. I would make sure you're careful on how you say it and when you say it. Try not to have these conversations when you are emotional. I know it's harder sometimes not to do that, but if that's where you're at and you're at a low point, you're just emotional all the time, there's nothing you can do about that. But try to do it when you've calmed yourself down a little bit, when you have more clarity on what you want to say, the points you want to get across. And I mean, in marriage in general, never come across as accusatory and using the word you. You know, it's just I feel, I this, or we kind of thing versus a you, because that will immediately come across as like you're attacking them, or you're blaming them, or you're expecting things of them, and it may not go that well. So I would just say, here's where I'm at, here's what I'm struggling with. Men like to fix things, so be clear in what you want. Do you, like, this is what I have to tell my husband. He'll be like, do you just want me to sit here and listen to you? Or do you want me to have something to say back? Or are you asking me to do something? There's like, those are three different things. Like a lot of times we just want someone to listen. Like I said, they may not be able to fix most, if not all, of what you're going through. It may take a doctor, it may take some medication, it may just take sleep and better nutrition and whatever. They may not be able to fix that for you, but they can 100% listen. They got ears. I mean, they can 100% have a conversation back and forth if you need some validation or whatever. They can 100% also take some things off your plate if that's what you need, but communicating that without saying you're not doing this right, or you need to do this better, or whatever. It's like, here's what I need. It would really help me if this, is that possible? Can you do this? Like, just be careful with your wording, but be open and honest. Don't try to shove it all in. Like, I got this, I got this, I got this, because you'll break. And then that won't go well. So just be open and honest as things are progressing. Like, hey, I've noticed I don't feel well at this time, or like, this makes me really sad and I'm not sure why, but I'm just communicating with you. Could you support me in this? Like, or if you start to notice I start to do these things, especially if it gets dangerous, like if you notice that I'm losing my patience with our kids and I might act out in a way that I don't need to, just say, hey, you need a break for a minute? Just step in, just say, hey, go somewhere you need to cool off, or you're going to have a mental breakdown, you're about to burst into tears. Like if they can sense that or see that, like ask for them, hey, can you give me that break? Even if it's just 5 minutes. I'm sure any hopefully any spouse would be willing to do, like, yeah, of course, I see. I don't want you to break down in front of our kids or do something you might regret, or, hurt our child or whatever, because you're not in a good state right now. So like I said, just being open and honest, and watch when you say it and how you say it. And hopefully they'll give you what you need as a spouse, not as a doctor or God or anything else more than what they're supposed to be. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Great tips. So, what are some of the challenges that new moms typically face that you've seen?
Burnout, exhaustion, loneliness. Yeah, having the issue with what I kind of said earlier with unmet expectations, 100%. If you aren't communicating either during or prior kids and your expectations of household chores and parenting duties and all that, I mean, that's a big one where wives are expecting their husbands to do certain things, and it's causing problems because it's not getting done either the way they want it or at all, or sometimes it is the husband's fault and they just really aren't manning up like they should, and sometimes it's the wife's fault because they're not communicating properly and they're not giving their husband the love and the respect that the husband needs, because men need respect 100%. or they're expect or they're trying to lead the family when it's meant for the husband to lead, and so they're not trusting the husband to be the man of the house, and they're trying to undermine his authority, and then do not like that, and they're going to push back even more instead of being more willing to help. Things like that for sure, definitely the marriage thing, but then also like they feel like they're taking it all, it's all their responsibility, and they either don't have good boundaries or priorities set straight, or they just don't know what they're doing with the new baby. And so, like how I was as first time mom, so you're not able to care for yourself because you're trying to figure out how in the world do I care for this child, and that's all consuming, especially if your spouse works all the time or you're a single mom or whatever. Like, it eventually a person just burns out. And then, like I said, also with the hormone imbalance, you add that in there, and that's just kind of a recipe for disaster sometimes.
So, on the opposite side of that, how can moms take care of themselves while they are raising their child or children?
Well, it starts with, you got to know what you're doing with your child or your children so that that is consistent, so that you can plan around it. Like, for example, if your children are consistent eating and feeding and sleep schedules and whatnot, you can count on certain times of the day to have to yourself or to dedicate to certain things, because when your day's just kind of chaos and a mess and you have no idea what tomorrow's going to bring. Of course we don't with kids because everything's unpredictable, that's just life in general. But when you already have some kind of foundation or like structure in place, that really helps at least give you a framework to work around. So that's my like biggest tip, is obviously figure out what your child needs, but you also have to take care of yourself as well. Like, I mean, a huge thing is getting up before your kids do and getting yourself ready for the day in some sort of way, whether that's 5 minutes or an hour or more that you need to yourself. Shower, workout, quiet time, like work, coffee, eating, whatever. Like, something to where, like, once your kids get up, you're like, okay, I got me taken care of. Now I can focus on you, because this is very hard to give your all to yourself at the same time you're giving your all to your kids. You can't do that. So it's really just about setting boundaries, having consistency and routines, and then you can just put things where they can go wherever you want.
Okay. And for you, what is your current routine, managing a household and having three boys as well as a spouse?
Like I said, I always get up before my kids do and get ready. Most days, I kind of switch my schedule around, but it just varies day to day with school. Some are in school full time, some are in part time. My youngest is still at home with me all day, but he naps. The other ones don't, so it's like my schedule's weird. But basically, I make time for a workout almost every day. I shower every day. I've never skipped a shower ever. That's just not something like it's important to me. I make time for it. Yeah, I try to, like I said, some days are different with work. Like, I'm working at least part of the day, whether it's with one of my kids during nap time, and I let him play on the iPad next to me while I'm on my computer. So he's doing some educational games on the iPad for fun because he's enjoying his time. But he's still with me. We're together. We're doing screen time together. Because I don't have any so they're not in daycare. So like, I have to do what I have to do, but that way I'm still getting some things done, and then my deep work or things for me that I really want to get done, obviously while they're asleep. So that way I'm not, pouring half of my effort and work and have for my kids. Like, so just finding that balance. And then
Do you
I
meal prep or anything?
do what? I'm sorry.
Do you meal prep or?
Yes, I was about to get to that.
Okay.
I'm working on that. That is one area that I'm trying to get better at because I've noticed on the times that I do, oh, it helps so much. So I'm trying to be more consistent with that. Our schedule's gotten a little crazier now. We've had some sports and activities into our lives, but yes, grocery shopping and planning meals, specific meals, have really helped. Also, to it's obviously better for you, so then you don't run the risk of like, well, I don't have anything on hand, I'll just go get Chick-fil-A or whatever, versus like, oh, I made this last night, I made this for tomorrow, breakfast is already ready, it's like a home cooked meal. I know what the ingredients are, it's fresh, and it just tastes so much better, it's healthier. And I definitely believe, like, if you have time to batch cook, like in over the weekend for your week, it saves so much time and energy, because the more kids you have, the weeks can get crazy, weekdays and whatnot, because my husband works usually up until like bath time. So most meals are not with him. So it's easy for me to go, oh, well, he's not here. I'll just like, they can just eat sandwiches or chicken nuggets or, something like simple.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really getting the nutrition I really want for me and my kids, because it can be easy to go that way. But yes, I believe when I do cook, batch cooking and stuff and meal plan and meal prep, it helps a lot.
Okay. And along those same lines, regarding like vegetables, are your kids receptible to vegetables? Do they like them or?
Yes and no. I'm not a big vegetable eater.
Okay.
Well, I've gotten a lot better. I just basically just don't eat beans and peas. Those are kind of like ones I just do not like. I'm a texture person, so but all my kids are slightly different on what they like to eat. But I've never made a whole separate meal for them. Like, what I make is what we all eat. I just give enough options to where everybody has at least like 2 to 3 things that they like. So I'm not like catering to everybody, but I'm not like not giving them what they like as well, if that makes sense. So like, it's good balance. Like, I don't make a separate meal for me and my husband and then separate for my kids. Like, what I make is what we all eat. I just make sure everybody's got some bases covered. I do make sure they try stuff before they say they just don't like it. But if you tried it and you say you don't like it, I'm not going to force you to eat it. I grew up that way and I don't like that. I don't think that teaches a good, healthy relationship with food. Like, not most people don't like everything, so why would I force you? Like, I can't force you to like something. Also, I know that your taste buds change as you get older. I like things now that I thought were absolutely nasty as a kid, so I'm not going to expect them to like everything right now, and that's okay. I try to give a wide variety of nutrition. Fruit is not an issue with my kids, so we're good in that area. But vegetables, I try to make sure that, I mean, there's ways to hide vegetables and things. I mean, you can have like pasta made out of vegetables. There's like little veggie tots that they think are fun. And then dips, sauces help a lot. Like carrots and ranch dressing or ketchup, like whatever really helps. Like, make it more fun. I like to tell people, like, if it is fun or familiar, the child's way more likely to at least try it, much less like it, than if it's not. So they've never seen it before, or it doesn't like look fun or exciting to them, then they're probably like, hey, what's that? But if you try to at least do one of those two things, sometimes that helps. And like I said, you can sneak things into lots of stuff that they would never know, and not make it a big deal. Like, I try not to make it a big deal if they don't like something, because there's something I don't like. And that's not really important to make them like stuff. It's to make sure that they're eating a well-balanced diet and they've got, their protein. I really try to focus on protein for them so they don't fill up on carbs. But you need that as well, but just try to prioritize usually what's more important. And yeah, we can have a little, like, I'm not depriving them of dessert and sugar, but I try not to spend much of my money on it and have much of it at home, because I know they get plenty of that with their grandparents. So, but they know this is how much sugar in it. I'm like, So just be careful. Like, don't eat too much or make your tummy hurt. Like, I like sweets. Most people do, but I just want to help teach them the good habits now so that they know what this is, what does it do to my body, how does it make me feel, so that when they're adults, it's like, oh, I eat a bunch of sugar and I feel jittery, or I feel, like I crash a few hours later, like I don't like that feeling, maybe I should stop. I just want to teach them to listen to their bodies and not label things as like good, bad necessarily, but just be smart and be wise. And if I teach them that early on, I hope that when they're adults and they're on their own, they already know what decisions to make versus trying to figure it out for themselves, because they couldn't have sugar as a kid. Now they go all out, like in college or something, and they weren't allowed this, and now they, and then they make unhealthy choices. So I hope by setting the foundation early on, it can help them when they're adults and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Train a child in the way it should go. When they get old, they shouldn't
Mhm.
depart. So yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. And there are a lot of just different options now with the vegetables, like you said, how to hide them in there.
Mhm.
And then I also too, I like your approach because like I'm of course grown now, but growing up, it was like you need to eat everything on your plate. You're gonna stay at this
Yes.
table until you eat. Like you just eat what I made, and nothing
Mhm.
can go to waste.
Yep.
So I think
Yep.
that is important to like teach your kids how to. Yeah, you can still have what you want, and I'm not going to force you to eat something you don't like, but that you still get the proper nutrition. So
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah. So, what other ways as a mom are you like? Do you have your self care time? I know you mentioned like you had to have your shower every day and work out, but what are some other things that you like or try to do when you can?
I truly love working. Like it really is like not like a job to me. So that is really fun because I get to talk to other moms. And if you're not careful, being a mom can be really isolating and really lonely. Especially if you don't have any in-person mom friends. So it's really nice to be able to connect like virtually with other people out there, and it kind of opens up your eyes to like your world is not this small. You know, it is a small world, but it's also very like we are very small in this big world. You know, so it just kind of like frames your mindset on all that. And I am very kind of geeky on like health and wellness and um, learning all of the things like so I definitely like to improve like okay how can I make a recipe healthier or how can I decrease the toxins in my home and like what's the latest trend on this. And I like working out as well and I like to run, so anyway I can improve those. And like I said, definitely learning more about women's health and like tracking my not tracking my cycle, I already do that, but like cycle syncing with like my diet, my workouts, my work, my social life, like and just learning about the female body and like how we are different every week for 4 weeks of the month. You know, like we're constantly changing, just so I can be a better human and like you know improve my health and improve my relationships and stuff like that. So I definitely health and wellness for sure, kind of like my hobbies and passions.
Okay. And kind of off the top of your head, what are some resources that you could potentially provide the audience with when it comes to like health and wellness or eating better? And also what you just mentioned about like the cycle syncing
Mm-hmm.
with your diet and exercise, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
even curious myself.
Like accounts I follow or something.
Could be your website where you kind of look for your information, like a reputable source.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, there's so many. The cycle syncing thing and like hormones, I follow Little Ray of Health on Instagram. Emily, Little Ray, RAE of Health. She has like a whole hormone course that she created. And then also, I'm gonna might butcher this name, Balanced Buyers. It's B, either Bayers or Beyers. They also do a lot on your period and your cycle. I'm looking them up right now. Beyars, sorry. They're sisters.
Okay. Is it
Balanced
EY?
Buyers. I don't know how you say their last name.
Okay.
Those are two of my favorite ones for hormones. I also follow a functional medicine doctor online at the Wellness Way. That's his practice. Why can't I think of his name now? On the top of my head now. Pressure. Oh, Patrick Flynn. He's with the Wellness Way. I like his
That
stuff.
way or wave?
Way, WAY, the
Okay.
Wellness Way. That's his clinic name. And then he's got clinics all over the country, different locations and stuff.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. Those are ones that are coming to mind. I also like Just Ingredients on Instagram as well. She does like non-toxic living, so she helps you find healthier and safer and cleaner products. And also she does food as well because she suffered from depression and found out a lot of it was rooted in what she was putting in her body. So kind of links into the health and hormones and everything and how not necessarily having an antidepressant will actually fix things. It's just kind of putting a band-aid on what's going on, but you got to get to the root of like all these things that are imbalanced in your body or these toxins in your body can really affect your brain health and your mental health for sure. So
Mhm.
those are some of my favorites.
Okay, great. And I'll be sure to put that information in the show notes and look that up. All right, Jenna. So, what's one last thing that you could leave with the audience today to help encourage them if they're on a journey of motherhood or just being a woman or whatever that you like at this time?
I think my biggest thing that I usually tell moms, but this can apply to any human for sure, but especially moms, sorry, is to accept the season that you're in because most things in life are not permanent. So emphasis on season, but accept the season that you're in and stop trying to control what you can't control in that season, but figure out what can you control in that season. So like for moms, for example, the first few years are hard. Not saying it necessarily gets easy or easier, but those first few years of motherhood are really hard. And to try to imagine what your life would be like as if you were a school age mom and your kids are at school all day and fit in those expectations on your family and your kids and whatever you got going on to fit into I'm a stay-at-home mom of a baby and a toddler is unrealistic and not fair and also going to frustrate you because you're going to try to fit like a circle inside of a square or whatever, and this is not going to work. But know that, yeah, eventually they will get to that age. So where you're at right now is not going to last forever. But just figure out, okay, what can I control where I'm here? So, for example, for me, I've got 3 little boys. My oldest is 5. He's in full-time kindergarten. My 4-year-old's in part-time preschool, and my youngest is with me majority of the time. So I don't have like an 8 to 3 schedule where my kids are gone all day and I've got time for myself. So I can't expect my life to look like that right now. I have to say, okay, it's not like I can't work or I can't work out or I can't have time for me. I can. It just might be shorter amounts of time and it might not be when I necessarily want it to be. But with what I've got going on, because my kids are on consistent schedules and routines, and I've got that framework to work around to figure out, okay, here's my starting point. What can I put where? You know, it's like those things for me are non-negotiable. So I'm going to make them happen, but not at the expense of my kids, not at the expense of my marriage or whatever, or expense of my business. So like, I just have to wiggle things around, and make it work for where I'm at right now. And as you know, if you have kids, you know how fast things change with kids. Like they grow out of certain stages and seasons and stuff, and it's constantly changing. It's a good and a bad thing. You might get used to something and then like, oh, now they're in school. Oh wow, my whole world's a whole lot different now. Or they go from a baby and now they're toddler and they're walking everywhere. Like whoa, or they drop naps or whatever. Like things are constantly changing. So you just have to figure out where am I at? Like just facts on paper, take your emotions out of it. It may be frustrating, like, my house will never be clean because I've got 3 little boys. This sucks. Okay, just let go of some of that. Yes, my house will not be picture perfect all the time. So now I can like release that expectation off myself. So that's like a huge burden lifted off my shoulders. Stop trying to make it look like that all the time because it's just not going to, because they're boys and they're loud and they're rough and they play with stuff and they're active all the time, but they're having fun. So like, make it a safe place for them to do so, make it an enjoyable place for them to do so. Clean to where it's not unsanitary and unhealthy, but quit trying to worry about every little thing. Maybe declutter so they've got more room to do that so you feel less stress on yourself. But also, like I said, this is my reality right now. So I'm not going to try to like force them to grow up faster, so that I can get there faster. Just figure out what's the best case scenario for where I'm at right now and try to figure out how do I get there. Yeah.
Yeah, this acceptance.
Yes, yes.
So, where can people find you if they like to stay connected to you?
I'm on Instagram and TikTok at Purpose Intended. That's also my blog, and my coaching page is on there as well. And then I'm on Facebook at Jenna Hodge.
All right, excellent. So, for those of you listening, check out Jenna Hodge. And thank you so much, Jenna, for coming on the show today. And I really appreciate it and your information that you shared with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, until next time, guys, ciao. Hey, Overcomers. Thanks for tuning in. For more information, head on over to DonnaCherie.com. If you want to find me online, I'm at I am Donna Cherie on Instagram and Donna Cherie on Facebook. Don't forget to join the Overcomers Confidence Club Facebook community. And of course, if you love the show, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes.